Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be taking a look at my favorite creator on Instagram, Fierce Fatty, and she's going to teach us whether or not the obesity epidemic is real. Okay, thank you for putting an asterisk in the word obesity. It is a slur, I am offended, and I need it to be censored out. My brain cannot comprehend what word you're trying to say there. Were you trying to say obesity or obosity or something? I don't know. If that's the case, then my brain is not offended by that. Yeah, we're all morons, so slightly censoring a word out takes its sting away, and now that word doesn't mean anything anymore. Thank you for shielding me from reality.
Is the O word epidemic real?
The O word?
Bruh.
Ooh, you're being a lot more bold than I would have been, man. I wouldn't even call it that. I'm scared to even approach the situation.
So first, let's look at the word epidemic. Epidemic means affecting a disproportionately large number of individuals within a populous community or region at the same time, excessively prevalent, contagious.
Does it have to be contagious to be considered an epidemic? I mean, I see overweight people all the time, but I've never caught it from them when I was sitting on a bus. One time I caught alcoholism because I sat a little too close to this guy on the bus, but I've never caught obesity from anybody. Well, there was that one time.
So the only reason that there were suddenly millions more fat people overnight is because the National Institute of Health changed the BMI categories.
Bruh.
This is not the first time that I've heard this referenced. I almost forgot. Alright. Now I'm more ready than I was 2 moments ago. But yeah, this is not the first time I've heard this argument. The NIH suddenly changed the classification of what overweight and obese means, so now suddenly, overnight, millions of people were considered obese. Okay? She's acting like they weren't obese the day before. You only started being obese and or overweight when they had a classification for it. Yesterday, when you couldn't even pull your own body weight out of bed, you weren't even overweight. But today, now that we have a classification for it, oh man, you're in all sorts of trouble. You're in heaps of trouble, my friend, now that we have words to describe your situation. Before, you were fine. Before, we used to just refer to it as going down a deadly path of self-destruction, but now we refer to it as obesity.
Fat people have been getting a little bit fatter.
Have they? Well, I don't know, man. That depends on your definition of the word little. All right, I've seen some of these people, and they are not getting a little bit bigger. The ones who embrace fat acceptance ideology, every single one of them is putting on weight at a ridiculous rate.
Since the 1970s, 1980s, up to the 2000s, but straight-sized people haven't been getting fatter. So,
okay, so she's saying that the obese are becoming more obese, but people who are not obese are not becoming obese. And that's why we have an epidemic, don't you see? We're all concerned that the fat people are getting fatter, not that every other person is fat now. That's not what's happening at all. You can't go to Walmart and see a herd of buffalo walking down the middle of the aisle like this. And you're just like, dude, Jesus Christ. First of all, breathe out of your nose, sir. And secondly, get out of the goddamn way. I'm trying to get my goddamn middle muffins or whatever the garbage I went to Walmart for. Just kidding, I would never eat food from Walmart. The point she's trying to make is only fat people are getting fatter. People who were not fat before are not getting fat. Is that what the statistics say? Alright, a quick look on Google reveals that the US obesity prevalence was 49.9% in 2017 through March 2020. From 1999 through 2000, okay, this next part they have it worded really stupidly. From 1999 to 2000 through 2017 through March 2020, okay, US obesity prevalence increased from 30.5% to 41.9%, which is an increase of 10.4, my friend. During the same time, the prevalence of severe obesity increased from 4.7 to 9.2. Therefore, you're wrong. The amount of people who were not obese and are now currently obese has risen by over 10%, and the amount of people who were obese that have become, I'm guessing now, morbidly obese has also risen. So your statistics are all wrong.
So the fat people have been getting a little bit fatter, but straight-sized people haven't been moving into that fat category.
What are you talking about? What do you think this obesity epidemic that everybody is talking about is actually about? So when people brought up the obesity epidemic, you thought they were referring to the fact that fat people are getting fatter? I'm not trying to be mean, but I think everybody gave up on them a long time ago. Nobody's like, oh my God, that fat guy, he just keeps getting fatter. This is ridiculous. Now everybody's like, oh my God, my cousin Frank, who used to be normal, now he's obese because he got his dietary advice from Betty Crocker. Yeah, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that normal people are becoming obese at a staggering rate because most of the food these days is not food. It's actually processed chemical garbage, and you have to go out of your way to avoid it. Like basically, if you see an overweight person, they just ate whatever was recommended to them, right? They just didn't put a second thought into it. Like these days, if you see someone that's in good shape, you're like, all right, that dude actually rages against the machine. He actually went against the grain and did his own research and studied about what this whole diet and exercise thing is. Whereas the fat guy was just like watching TV. He just does whatever he's told, right? That's the vibe I get. Like if you're very overweight, you just do what you're told. People are like, hey, you should have this food. And you're like, okay. And like, hey, you should go sit on that couch. And they're like, okay. Like, go against the grain, man. Don't believe mainstream anything. It's all a lie all the time.
The obesity epidemic...
Stop. Why do you keep putting an asterisk in obese? Oh, man. If it was such a damn slur, you wouldn't just keep saying it and putting an asterisk in it, right? Like, all right, guys, I think the N-word is very offensive, so I'm going to say it about 20 times. I'm going to keep on putting the asterisk in there, though. Would that offend you?
Is based on the BMI, which is 200 years old.
It's 200 years old? Well, get that shit out of here, dude. Get Grandpa's BMI out of here, dog. This is 200 years later than whenever the hell they made that thing. Why are we still using this relic? This ancient Egyptian relic, you could call it. You could call it an artifact from ancient Egyptian times, or a look into the past of violently fat-phobic history that we all want to forget. You know, these tragedies we've all been trying to forget for years. She's about to say that the data was collected from my measurement. If you hate that BMI, wait till we bust those calipers out.
Apart from someone's height divided by their weight. The third thing here to consider is that the categories of what normal weight and overweight they've been changed many times, and that's because of the influence and lobbying of diet companies.
What? You guys get it exactly wrong every time. You try to say that there's this giant conspiracy going on by all the diet companies, those darn diet companies, but you never, ever, ever take into account the billion-dollar Nestle and all of their subsidiaries that sell food, and how addictive food makes them billions of dollars per year, my friend. The diet industry, first of all, is probably owned by Nestle themselves. So let's learn a little bit about how the world works and not become a victim of it, okay? Like, if you know how these predatory companies operate, then why are you still going to the aisle and buying Love Crunch and just palm fisting it into your mouth? Like, all this negative stuff that you say about those darn diet companies trying to keep me down and sell me products to keep me down and shit, that's exactly what the food companies are doing to you, but you don't see it. You're like, man, those predatory diet companies, they're really going to put me to poor health one day for profit. That would be terrible. And Nestle is looking at you through the window like this. Yes, let the carbohydrates flow through you. Yes. You're grubbing down on a bunch of processed garbage, sugar, and carbs, and then you look over and you just see this light glow in the corner of the room. It's Nestle. All you see is the glow from Nestle's cigarette in the corner of the room watching you. That's right. Eat the carbs. Fight the diet industry. They're trying to keep you down. Nestle's also part of the Russian mafia. That is right, comrade. Those evil diet companies try to keep you down. You stick it to them by eating ho-ho cake.
Also, they're arbitrary numbers.
They're arbitrary numbers. They're literally made up. They're arbitrary numbers. They're literally made up. Couldn't you say that about literally every single number on this planet? Your height? That's just a number, dog. Your weight? That's just a number. Your age? Is that just a number too, Fierce Fatty? I swear to God, if you say that one, we're done. We're done, dude. We're done.
Literally made up.
Everything is made up, honey. The words that you're saying are made up. We decided that all these stupid sounds would come together and make these things that we call words, and we all agreed on it, okay? Same with math.
And they said, let's just round it to 5 because 5 sounds good, it's easy to remember. So 25 to 30, 35 to 40.
What? Is that what they did? Dude, you don't understand the rationale of the medical professionals that came up with these tests. What are you talking about?
Etc. Is not based on anything. It's just because it sounds good and
it's because it sounds good. Uh-huh. This is a very sad display, honestly, and once again, I can't believe this person uploaded this. We all have behaviors that we should work on, you know? We're all crappy in this way or that. But to, like, come up with a whole ideology to justify your crappy behavior is just, you're doing the most, homie. It's too much. Like, you didn't just be like, yeah, man, I'm kind of crappy sometimes. Like, you went and wrote an entire novel. You basically wrote a new diagnostic service manual that applies only to you. Like, all these things that are, like, bad and stuff, I have, like, literally written an entire manual on how none of this stuff is bad. Like, in my own mind, you've done a lot of mental gymnastics to make yourself feel like this is all okay. You've even gone so far as to attack numbers themselves. Like, you're like, what is the number 5 anyway? What does that even mean? What the fuck?
it's easy to remember. The most recent change in 1998 from the NIH sparked the rhetoric around this epidemic.
That NIH is really keeping you down, man.
Which came from that overnight change in numbers on a chart.
Right, so they mistakenly did not call any of you obese before. And then one day, like, oh crap, due to a miscalculation in the math, turns out that my previous math was incorrect. You're all obese, and yeah. And then everybody's like, wait a minute. I'm obese? I haven't been able to see my genitals in years, and you're telling me that I'm obese?
A group of people got together in a room and was like, okay, so we think we should lower what fatness is.
That is exactly what happened. It was a party, actually. I was actually at that party. It was dope as fuck. We were all drinking. We all had, like, all the papers out talking about, like, the different classifications of what obesity is and stuff. And we were all partying, having a good time. I was like, yo, wouldn't it be funny if we just, like, change these numbers to make people who are not obese all of a sudden, and then they can cry and feel bad about it? None of these people are actually obese, you know. Somebody with a BMI over 30, they're actually healthy, but we're going to mess with them and tell them that they're obese. These are actually the healthiest people on the planet, but we're going to mess with them. We're going to mess with them a little bit and tell them that they actually are fighting a deadly disease known as obesity. Gotcha.
Lower the numbers. Oh, turns out we've got millions of fat people just rolling around the streets, and yesterday we didn't.
We did yesterday. We just didn't call them that. We just said, hey, look, there's a portly fellow, or whatever. And then we came up with this other term. People probably got sick of being called things like tubby and lard ass and all this other type of stuff, so they came up with this new word called obesity. Hey, this is a medical term that just means you got an excess of adipose tissue. This won't offend anybody, is what their rationale was. And now you come along, you're like, obesity is a slur. Call me fat fuck. You're like, what? No, I'm not going to call you that, man.
It's an epidemic. Is it? Or is it just a change in some numbers?
So what you're saying is, before we had a test to diagnose whether or not people had tuberculosis, there was never an epidemic of tuberculosis. If it wasn't classified as such, then it wasn't. And then one day some jerk came along and said, hey, all that coughing and dying that you guys are doing, I think it might be this thing called tuberculosis. That guy was a jerk for coming up with that classification. And sorry, I should have bleeped out the word. I was thin as a rail yesterday, and then they changed some classifications of some numbers and stuff. Today, I'm very obese. Thanks, NIH. Jesus.
It also then presumes that people who fall into higher weight categories are automatically unhealthy and a burden on society due to increased fat
Well, I'm not saying that fat people are or are not a burden on society, but some of them, if left to their own devices, would not be able to feed themselves. Some of them require constant care because they've eaten themselves into a wheelchair. Those ones are a burden on society, and if you think they're not, then we should just stop helping them. Okay, if Tammy Slayton is not a burden on society, then we can just leave her to her own devices and see what happens. We'll see if she figures it out. I'm sure she actually would. She's not like bedridden. She can get up and get her ass to the damn store. She'll figure it out. Honestly, that's what everybody needs to do. To help Tammy Slayton, we need to abandon her. No, dog. No, I ain't bringing you any food. I ain't driving you to the store, and I ain't pushing you in the wheelchair. Get up and figure it out on your own, homie. Otherwise, just sit there and wallow away. Whatever you're going to do, but it ain't my problem, homie. I guarantee you, she'll figure it out.
Or weight on their body.
So you're saying you have experienced no negative health effects because of your weight. I'm pretty sure that you have experienced negative health effects because of your weight. And despite that fact, you're still encouraging others to do the same and telling them that there's no problem. This makes you a bad person, fierce fatty. You're not just being like, you know what, I'm fat and you guys should stop judging me for that. You're like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not unhealthy. Therefore, you're spreading harmful misinformation.
There is no evidence to prove that actually having more adipose tissue, which is fat tissue on your body, leads to poorer health outcomes.
There's no evidence for that, huh? Alright, so she said that excess fat does not lead to any negative health outcomes. Let us focus only for just a moment on the hormones. It is now widely accepted that white adipose tissue secretes a number of peptide hormones, including leptin. It also secretes these other hormones. This newly discovered secretory function has shifted our view of WAT, which is no longer considered only an energy storage tissue, but a major endocrine organ. At the heart of a complex network influencing energy homeostasis, glucose and lipid metabolism, vascular homeostasis, immune response, and even reproduction. So from this alone, we see that just the fat tissue itself is hormonally active, like I've said before, and it causes a number of problems. It's not just energy storage tissue, but a major endocrine organ at the heart of a complex network influencing energy homeostasis, which means influencing the balance of energy in your body, glucose and lipid metabolism, which means sugar and fat metabolism, and vascular homeostasis, which refers to your network of blood vessels and veins, immune response, and even reproduction. So it negatively affects you in every single way, all the way down to your reproductive functions, which is why heavier women always have heavier flows. Do you think that that's just for the heck of it? If you have a heavier flow all the time just because of your weight, that should tell you something, my friend.
What we do know that causes poorer health outcomes is 1, weight cycling, which is yo-yo dieting or dieting.
No, why would that cause poorer health outcomes? The only part of that that's bad is the gaining part. The losing weight is not the bad part.
2, subpar or lack of access to healthcare.
Lack of access to healthcare is why obesity is a problem. Translation, you guys need to cater to us more and hold us up on your arms and carry us around. You guys need more access to healthcare. Why? So you won't have an obesity problem as long as you guys get plenty of access to healthcare. Okay, yeah, you can pay for that healthcare. Why would obese people need more access to healthcare? That's weird. It's not like obesity is bad for you or anything. So it is not the obesity that is negatively impacting these people, but the healthcare and the way that they are treated. I see. What about the way that you're treating your knees and the rest of your body? That's not having any negative health outcomes. It's just the way that these people treated me.
And 3, experiencing weight bias, the stress that comes from that.
The stress that comes from weight bias is why you guys are the way that you are. All right, man. I feel bad for all of you, but the way that you guys make excuses makes me stop feeling bad. Like, I don't know, man. Tell me that you have the mentality of a 5-year-old child, dog, without telling me that. Like,
remember, correlation is not causation.
Right, all those cookies that you ate have nothing to do with your weight.
We also have great evidence to show that, quote, overweight people have reduced mortality compared to, quote, normal weight people.
Oh, yeah? Is that why Cat Paws lived to the ripe old age of 42? Is that why you have a myriad of health problems? Even if you got brain damage to the point where you don't understand that obesity is unhealthy, living in that kind of body and having such a struggle just standing up, you would have to know that something doesn't feel right here. But these people, most of them have been obese their entire lives, so they don't know any better. They're just like, yeah, you guys are all in constant pain too, right? Like, it hurts just to get up or to breathe for the rest of you, obviously. So, like, none of us have any problems. They don't understand that that is not part of the normal human condition. And obese people do not live longer. Stop bringing this up. Stop lying.
Which is called the obesity.
Yes, we've all heard it's called the bullshit lies that don't make any sense and are not true.
Paradox. The paradox being, we thought that fat people were dying all over the place, but they ain't. It's a paradox. And the word paradox means a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition that, when investigated or explained, may prove to be well-founded or true. And so for years we've have evidence that health outcomes of fat folks is not due to increased fat tissue.
It's not. What about all those hormones and stuff and all that stuff that I just read 2 seconds ago that said that excess adipose tissue is bad for every single part of your body? Just the fat itself wreaks havoc on your entire body, including your reproductive system.
And so we know that it's coming from, if it is there, from other things. But then whenever
you need to detox from that glucose that your brainstem has just been soaking in for years. It's doing deleterious things to your mental health as well.
Evidence show there's decreased mortality in fat folks. People are like, oh my god, it can't be true.
Yeah, because it's not. So all those fat people that keep dying just because they're fat, they didn't, because this guy released a paper one time that said, hey, sometimes fat people don't die prematurely, and now all those fat people that I see dying left and right didn't.
Even though there's many years of evidence to show that it's okay to be fat.
Yeah. Did you go to Cat Paw's funeral? I didn't get an invite.
Also, you cannot die from fatness.
You can die from not being able to breathe and all the excess weight pushing down on your heart and lungs and all of your organs.
Right?
I don't know, man. I think you can. I think people die from it every single day. Heart disease.
You can die from things that are associated with fatness, but again, it is not proven that fatness in and of itself causes these negative outcomes.
So in order for you to take this seriously, you need to see somebody die from obesity. So you're going to keep going down a deadly path until the day where you actually see somebody die from obesity. This dude is sitting there, he just falls over dead. How would they diagnose that, though? So you won't take this thing seriously until somebody gets diagnosed as dying from obesity. Gotcha. This guy died from a myriad of conditions all coming together, like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, high blood pressure. All this stuff came together, gave him a heart attack, a stroke, and all this type of stuff all at once, and he died. But it wasn't the obesity itself that killed him. Never mind the fact that he wouldn't have had any of those conditions if he weren't obese.
And let's just say we ignore all that. Let's say that we are in an obesity epidemic. Making a fat person into a smaller person doesn't mean that they will then have the same health outcomes as that smaller person.
They will be far more likely to have positive health outcomes. What are you talking about? Nobody's trying to make you smaller. Like, we see you as a larger person and we're like, that angers me. You need to become smaller so I don't have to look at you. No, anybody that tries to help you is just trying to help you. And then you shit all over them like they're trying to hurt you.
Pursuing health outside of weight loss is possible and proven.
No, if you're obese, you need to lose weight, otherwise you're going to be unhealthy. Period. There's no getting around this. There's no mental gymnastics. There's no justifying your way out of it. Like, if you're obese, you're unhealthy, and the only way to become healthy is to lose the weight, to control what you consume, and to exercise more, to do things that are slightly uncomfortable because we have a sight of the bigger picture.
Also, there are 0 peer-reviewed controlled clinical studies that show any method of intentional weight loss works in the long term.
Okay, then eat yourself to death. I don't know why you keep telling us all this stuff. This is literally an alcoholic giving a seminar on how drinking actually isn't that bad for you, and people need to stop riding me, man. Yo, Y'all need to stop riding me, man. Come on, man. I just need to get a little high real quick. Come on, man.
So, is the obesity epidemic real? Doesn't show that there's any evidence that it's this thing where fat people are running around the streets and eating babies.
What? What? Yo, I didn't even get into how fat people love to eat babies. We'll get into that in the next episode. We don't have time for that in this one, unfortunately.
And even if it was real, we don't have evidence to say that being fat, it makes you inherently unhealthy.
We have all the evidence in the world. Not only do we have evidence that being fat is incredibly unhealthy and completely possible to lose the weight, we also have evidence showing that fat people do eat babies.
Or that we can lose weight in any way. So
there's no evidence that you can lose weight in any way. Okay, so you've thrown in the towel on life as a whole.
I mean, the obesity epidemic basically is just a load of fat phobia, weight stigma, weight bias, moral panic about...
Moral panic? About fat bodies? No, nobody cares. Nobody thinks that you're immoral because you can't control yourself. We were just trying to help you. We weren't like, oh my God, keep this fatty away from my children. They're going to infect us all. No, we're just like, oh my God, this person is going through a bad time. I feel bad for them. Maybe I should offer them some advice on how to lose weight. And then you come back with all this ridiculous, venomous rhetoric.
Fat bodies. And we need to stop talking about it because it's not real and it's fucked up.
So we need to stop talking about it because your feelings got hurt and you don't think that you're obese at all. You don't think there's any sort of epidemic at all. The lack of self-awareness to upload this, once again, is like an alcoholic giving a seminar on how it's not bad to drink and all this other type of stuff. Like, you're doing more than that. Like, you're writing out manuscripts of lies and sitting there and reciting it in front of a microphone and camera on the regular. It's hilarious. So in closing, yes, the obesity epidemic is real. The adipose tissue is hormonally active, and those hormones alone will completely destroy your body, and we haven't even started talking about all the other negative health outcomes that are associated with obesity, including heart disease, stroke, hypertension, sleep apnea, etc., diabetes. She's like, obesity itself doesn't kill you, but all the things that it causes will. Okay, so if we connect 1 to 2 to 3, then obesity does kill you, my friend. Obesity causes heart attacks, but it was the heart attack that killed you. Therefore, obesity didn't kill you, but the obesity caused the heart attack. Shut up. That's fat phobic. Gonna have to disagree with everything that you just said, Fierce Fatty, once again. Anyway, that about does it. Thanks for watching, commenting, liking, and subscribing. And I'll see you in the next one.